Welcome. In this video, I'm going to teach you the basics of OnShape and other CAD software very similar to OnShape. And I'm going to do this by designing a fly swatter holder to help organize my kitchen. Let's jump in. In programs like OnShape, you start with sketches. And these sketches are 2D and then you turn them into 3D. To create a sketch, you click on sketch and you see this blue here. That means you need to put something in here. It says sketch plane. What's a sketch plane? A plane is a flat surface, and built into OnShape are these three basic planes: top, front, right. And this is where you're going to start from, one of these. In this case, I'm going to work on the front. So I'm going to click on the front. I can click on it here. And you'll notice this light blue rectangle with sketch 1 comes across, which means I'm sketching there. Now, I will want the camera to face there and zoom in on there because it's much easier to see what's happening if I'm at the right angle. And the quick way to do that is to right click and say View Normal to Sketch Plane. Now I am looking directly at the sketch plane like it's just a normal piece of paper. And these lines often confuse a lot of people, so let's hide them. Very easy. Go over to this eye. You can hide. Click on them to hide them. If you want to show them again, you can unclick. I'm leaving the origin there, which is this up here, because that gives me a good starting point. All right, so what do I draw in my sketch? There's multiple ways to create 3D objects from a sketch. But what I'm going to do for this hook is I'm going to create a side view sketch of the hook, because I think that will be the easiest way for me to create it. And I'm going to use the line tool. You'll notice when I went to a sketch, there's all sorts of new tools in here. And also up here says sketch 1, and there's this green check and this X. So I'm in sketch mode. So let's click on the line tool, and I'm going to start it on the origin and move it straight up. You'll notice there's that small black line next to it. That means vertical, which means this line is always going to be vertical. It's something called a constraint, which I'll talk about more in a bit. And I'm just going to roughly sketch this out. You notice on the side there's a horizontal black line. That means horizontal. Okay, and it's automatically doing that. So here is my rough sketch. You notice as I come down, there's a yellow line to show those points are lined up, which can be really useful. And you notice it filled in gray, which means it's complete. Now, I'm still in crosshair mode, so if I start clicking again, I'm going to draw a line. I'm going to undo that. So how do I get out of a tool? Well, if I want to get out of a tool and back to selection, you just hit escape on the keyboard and you're back to the regular mouse pointer. So here's my rough sketch. I'm going to turn it 3D pretty soon, but first I need to add dimensions. And before I add dimensions, I want you to notice there are different colored lines, black and blue. And those actually are relevant, and I'll explain it as I go along. So how do you dimension things or make sure they're the right size in a program like this? There's a dimension tool, which is up here, but you're going to use it so much that the shortcut D to toggle it on and off, you'll use a lot. So let's start with the height. And my height, I'm going to click on here, is 75 millimeters. I'm going to type 75 millimeters, mm for millimeters. Why can't I just type 75? You'll notice I'm in inches. In other words, my project is in inches. Now I can change that because I don't like working in inches. When I'm designing, I like working in the metric system. I know some people prefer inches. Totally fine. It's up to you. And it's really easy to do. You go up to these three lines here and say workspace units. And up here, change it to millimeters. Hit the green check to confirm and we're good. I want you to notice something when I did that it automatically took me out of sketch mode. How do I know that? The tools are different here, right? These are 3D tools. So how do I get back to edit this specific sketch? If I hit sketch, it's going to create a new sketch. You see, it creates a new sketch. I'm going to hit the red X to cancel that out. So how do I get back to edit this sketch? Well, I come over here to my timeline and I right click on this sketch 1 and say edit. Now I'm back in sketch mode and I can see the dimension is 75. All right, let's dimension other things here. So hit the dimension tool. I want the thickness of this to be 7 millimeters. I can just type 7 because I'm in millimeters. And I want this thickness to also be 7 millimeters, but there's no line that's that thickness. So what do? I can click on this line, and it will dimension that line, and then I click on this line, and it creates a dimension between those two lines. And I just say, I want that 7 millimeters. So you can dimension between lines, not just the distance of one line, but between lines or between objects. It's even more powerful. Now, you'll notice the 7's there. It's hard to see. I could move it here. That doesn't change the dimensions. It's just how you like the layout and the look. So let's make this 7 as well. You'll notice as I did this, more lines turned black, which means they're constrained. What does constrained mean? Constrained means we've given them rules. In this case, we've given them the rules that they have to be a certain length and that they either have to be horizontal or vertical and often perpendicular to each other, which means they can't move. For example, if I hit escape and I try click on this line and move it, it won't move. This blue line, you'll notice, if I click on it, it is able to move because I haven't constrained it. So this shows me sort of what the flexibility is. So let's constrain that because it's really good to have a fully constrained sketch. You don't always have to, but it is good practice to fully constrain a sketch because then when you change one thing, everything else will update and follow those same rules. So this distance here, 51 millimeters, will give me enough space to fit on my 4 fly swatters. And then I want the height of this to be 10 millimeters. You notice now everything is black, which means it's fully constrained. If I hit escape and go out of here and I try and move anything, nothing will move. And it's constrained because I gave everything dimensions, but also because if I hover over this, you see this black line. That means I want that line up and down. And this means I want these two lines to be perpendicular at right angles to each other. If you start out and your sketches aren't fully black, don't worry about it. You can still do it. And for a simple thing like this, it's really not a big deal. So now I want to make it 3D. How do I do that? Well, I gotta get out of sketch mode. And to do that, I hit the green check. So when I like how something looks in general, you hit the green check. And you'll see the dimensions disappear and this new menu comes up. And there's a lot here. We're going to focus on this tool, the extrude. I'm going to click on that. And the first thing it says, faces to extrude. So I'm going to click on this face. And look, it pops it out. And how far do I want to pop this out? I'm going to say 20 millimeters. And I have a hook. However, there's a problem with this. And that problem is I need this back part here to be thick enough to attach my tape onto it. I have that special 3M mounting tape that I can mount on the wall. And then this hook part needs to be thin enough that the fly swatter handles actually fit over it. So how do I do that? I have to do it with 2 different extrudes. So I'm going to delete this extrude. And I'm going to go back to sketch and I'm going to edit it. This all is one big surface, but I need to extrude this part and this part separately. So I'm going to add a line that splits them. And how do I know this is straight perpendicular? See that symbol? That's how I know. Doesn't look good. Well, that's because actually my camera is tilted, you see, to the sketch plane. And if I right click and say view normal sketch plane, now it looks correct. So if things aren't looking right, remember you can always right click and say view normal to sketch plane. Now that I've done that, I'm going to extrude and I'm going to start by extruding this part. And I'm going to again say 20 millimeters, but I'm going to click on the symmetric. So what does that do? I'm going to uncheck it so you see that again. When you just do a normal one, it starts on the sketch and bolds it out this way, 20 millimeters. When I do symmetric, it means it will bold it out 10 millimeters this way and 10 millimeters that way, which is perfect because I want this centered in it later. And you'll notice that new is selected here in blue, which is important. We'll talk about that in a bit. Hit the green check. There we go. Great. Now I want to extrude that other part, but it's gone. Where did it go? Well, right after you add a feature, it's called, to a sketch. Extrude is a feature that makes it 3D. The sketch hides, but it's still right here in your timeline. You see how there's that line through it? It means it's hidden. You can always unhide it to show it. And let's do another extrude. I'm going to click on this face. And you notice again, by default, blind, it pops it all the way out. but I want to do symmetric, and I don't want to do 25 millimeters. I want it much thinner. Otherwise, my fly swatter handles won't hold on to it. And I want it roughly 3.6 millimeters. So I'm going to type 3.6. And I know it's centered because I did symmetric. You'll also notice that instead of new, add is automatically hidden. And there's this merge scope with part 1. What does that mean? Well, part 1 was that part I created when I created that first extrude, the back. And instead of a new part, which I could do, which would make it a completely separate part, I want this to be one part. So I'm going to click add, hit check. All right, looks great. Now, I don't want that sketch in my way, so I'm going to hide it. That looks really nice. And honestly, I could probably print it. But I'm going to make it look a little nicer with something called the fillet tool. So I'm going to click on fillet, and I can click on edges, which basically round those edges. So I'm going to click on here. I want this edge round and this edge rounded as well to make it smooth to fit on to the fly swatter. All right. And I think this looks neat if I fillet these edges too. So I'm going to do it. Once you've clicked on all the edges, they're all listed right here. So you can also unselect them and you control how much it fillets. In other words, the radius. It's 3 millimeters now. If I do 5 millimeters and hit tab, it will show the update. That's a little too much. I'm just going to do 3 and hit tab to preview it before finalizing it. I'm going to hit the green check, which basically means, all right, like that. And you notice in my timeline, there's a fillet. That looks really good. One other tip I want you to know is these are the default names for everything. And for a simple project like this, this is probably fine. But when you get complicated, you want to start naming things. So you can right click on this and rename this and call it base sketch. This I can rename to the back. And this I could rename to the hook. So I know what everything is if I need to go back and edit. And then part, this is the whole 3D part. And you can rename this. I can rename it as fly swatter hook. And if I was to 3D print this, I can right click on this and hit export. I can choose STL, choose the name, hit export. And it downloads, and then I load it into my slicer and 3D print it. One of the powers of this is I can make edits really easily. So let's say I actually want some different dimensions on this. I can right click on this sketch, click edit. Instead of 51, I want it to be 100 because I have more fly swatters. I can update that, hit return. I hit check, and then everything else will update from that. It recalculates all my extrudes and all my fillets, so I don't have to redo anything else. You can also introduce variables and make it parametric. It's super powerful because it's all mathematically calculated. I'm going to change it back to 51. And I want to add a support because I think this might be a weak point here. So how can I do that? Well, I'm going to say edit sketch, come back in here, and I'm going to add a line like this. I'm going to hit escape to get out of the line tool, and you'll notice it's blue because I haven't totally constrained it, which means I can move that point there and I can move that point there. So let's dimension these. So you notice when I go here, it tries to dimension the whole line, but I just want between this point and this point. Now I can dimension between points. I hit D, I click on the first point, click on the second point, and now it's going to give me the dimensions for that. And I'm going to say 10 millimeters. And I'm going to do the same down here. The point distance between that is going to be 3. Hit check. Awesome. But you'll notice there's nothing there. Why not? Well, if I go to extrude for the hook and say edit, you'll notice that face isn't selected. So I can show that sketch again. And I can add that face to that extrude. And now I have that support. So it's really powerful because you can edit anything and add things and everything updates. All right, I'm gonna add a couple more supports on the bottom here. And I'm gonna show you how to do that really quickly because I'm gonna create another sketch. So I'm gonna click sketch. And remember we used the sketch planes from top, front, right, which are still there. I can still use them. And it's a good practice to use those if you can, but you can also sketch on a surface of your 3D object. You just have to be aware if that surface disappears, that sketch is going to get messed up. So I'm going to click on that. You'll see the sketch. I'm going to say view normal sketch plane, and I am going to draw some more triangles. And even though there are lines there, you notice I'm drawing over them because those lines are from other models. And you notice how I just went over there without clicking to get that dotted line. And I need a full triangle to get it filled in gray. Okay, hit escape. I'm going to hit dimension tool or D and dimension this. You'll notice this is already black because this has a constraint where it's connected, I think, to this line already. So let's just dimension this and make it 5 millimeters. And you notice both of them updated because I had lined them up. Everything is black, which means everything's constrained, which is great. Hit check. There it is. And then let's extrude these, that one and that one. Oh, they're going in the wrong direction, right? So I'm going to flip the direction. And I could put the measurement for this height, but if I click on this arrow, there's other things like up to face. And if I say up to face, I have to click on a face. In this case, I'm going to click on this face, and then it goes up to there. So if that face changes, it will update. Let me show you. Hit green check. That looks really good. So if I go back to this base sketch and I do change this to something like 10, you'll notice this part also updates. It didn't stay at 7 and went to 10. I'm going to undo because that's not what I want. And looking at this, I maybe popped this out a little too much compared to this one. I want them even. So let's go back into this sketch, edit it. And instead of 5, let's go 3. Because that's what the other one was. There we go. I like that look better. So now I have my hook ready to organize my kitchen, ready to go. All I need to do again is right click, export it, hit OK, slice it and print it. And then my life for swatting flies is organized. So next time I see a fly in my house, and I need it out fast, I'll know exactly where to go, get one quickly, and that fly has no chance. Well, until next time, take the time to learn and create every day.